This is a Dharma talk on case 7 of the Book of Serenity. The title of the case is Yakusan Takes the High Seat. Yakusan is if you look at the Chinese characters for Yakusan, this is, of course, the Japanese way of pronouncing Chinese. Yaku means medicine, and San is for mountain. So Medicine Mountain is his name. I just love that name. I think it's so expressive of what so many of us are thirsting for or hungry for, in terms of seeing the natural world as medicine for our minds and hearts, our souls. So this particular teacher is very important in the Soto Zen school of Buddhism. Here's the case. Here's the story. Attention. For a long time, Yakusan had not ascended the high seat. In other words, he had not given a talk in a long time. To ascend the high seat means to give a sermon or a Dharma talk. He had not ascended the high seat. The administrator monk spoke to him, saying, "The monks have been wondering about some guidance for a long time. Your Reverence, for the sake of the assembly, will you please give us a talk?" So you could understand this community's desire for Yakusan to say something. They are wanting some guidance in their practice. How should we practice? What should we do? That's the question. Could you please give us a talk on that? Yakusan had the gong struck, and the monks then assembled. To say that the gong or the bell was struck, that's a way of saying that there's a call to come and listen to the Dharma. When you hear the bell sound, that's a call to hear or listen to the Dharma. So the monks all assembled. Yakusan ascended the high seat, remained silent for a while, then got down and went back to his quarters. So we came across this similar kind of story in the first koan of the Book of Serenity, where the Buddha does something very similar. So Yakusan, he ascends the high seat. They're all expecting, they're all waiting for him to say something. He remains silent for a while. Then he got down and went back to his quarters. So kind of mysterious. Later on, the administrator monk said to him, "Master, a little while ago, you agreed to give us a talk on behalf of the assembly. Why didn't you give us even a single word?" Yakusan replied, "There are sutra teachers for the sutras." Those are the teachings of the Buddha. The Buddha taught over his 40 years of life of teaching. There is so much writing that has been recorded. There's so much in writing that has been recorded of the original words of the Buddha. There are sutra teachers for the sutras and instructors for the commentaries. Why do you come and bother this old monk? All right, that's his response to the monk. Why do you bother me about this question? It seems kind of cold, I think, to talk like that. But I think actually this is a story about maturing, ways that we can mature in Zen practice. We have to be careful not to make the mistake of not asking questions or not requesting even the Dharma being spoken. So this is not saying that we shouldn't ask about the Dharma or to hear the Dharma even. It's saying something, I think, a little bit more. We need sangha, we need a community, and we need teachers around to practice the Dharma together. One of the ways to think about this story is that it's actually very democratic, if you think about it. The teacher, Yakusan, by not saying anything, he's saying everything. The Dharma is being practiced and spoken in every moment. We don't have to rely on somebody to give it to us. You don't have to rely on me to give it to you. The question is, do we have ears to hear the Dharma being spoken in any given moment, whether we're listening to a Dharma talk or we're watching the television or we're driving a car or we're chopping some vegetables or even we're talking with our friend. Lately, just this past couple of weeks, Jisho and I have taken up the practice of sounding a bell every 20 minutes throughout the day. It's a wonderful practice, and I highly recommend it. We have an app on our phone. It's a Plum Village app, and we have it set to go off every 20 minutes starting on the hour. And every time we hear the sound of the bell, we stop. It's a reminder for us to pause, take 3 breaths, no matter what we're doing. So maybe you can do something similar that has you stop throughout your day. If you want to join us in that practice, you're certainly welcome to. It's a free app online. Or if you don't want to use a bell, you can get creative in your own way. What things could you do? So we'll take a little time here at the to talk about, maybe discuss ways to stop and slow down just for 3 breaths in whatever activity you happen to be doing. And the other thing I want to mention here is how Yakusan has had the confidence in his students and his community to not say a word. This is really rare. Many religious leaders are eager to say something and have lots of people listening and revering them, and Yakusan is not like that at all. And I think this is one reason why Soto Zen actually emphasizes just sitting in silence. There is trust that you will figure out what you need to do in that stillness and silence. But again, this doesn't mean we shouldn't ask for clarification or help, or that we should somehow behave as if we're totally independent and above everything else and not in need of anything. That's not what that's saying. And I think this point is a pretty big misunderstanding in Zen, that somehow it's about total self-reliance. We should keep in mind that Zen is not this monolithic tradition. It's blended with other forms of Buddhism, including Pure Land Buddhism. Right? Pure Land Buddhism is very strong in Vietnam, China, Taiwan, and in Japan. In fact, in Japan, it is the most popular of all Buddhisms. And it's only in the West, and also no thanks to, as I'm learning, Western religious scholarship, that is, it has come to be seen as this kind of self-reliant tradition. And certainly there is this self-reliant emphasis in Zen, but there's more than just that. Pure Land Buddhism emphasizes reliance on what's called other power. In Japanese, it's called tariki, whereas Zen emphasizes reliance on self-power, jiriki, power meaning riki. But in reality, it's not nearly that clear-cut. There's been a long history of collaboration between Zen and Pure Land Buddhism. And just to share that, my teacher, Dayan Roshi, when she got sick with malnutrition during her training in the women's monastery in Japan, she was actually encouraged to convalesce at a Pure Land temple. And there she learned more about, of course, Pure Land Buddhism. She lived there in the temple for 9 months. And one of the things that Pure Land Buddhism teaches that she learned is to never miss the opportunity to hear the Dharma being spoken. All right, so I think this is a really important point. All right, I want to close there and just bring it out to you all. What helps you to hear the Dharma? What is it that helps you to hear the Dharma? Maybe take a moment to think about that and then bring it up for discussion. Or if you have something else you want to share that's related to the Koan case, please. I hear you, Nawab.
Oh, I have a question.
Yeah.
What do you mean by in Pure Land, there's the other power? I'm
Oh,
not
yeah.
sure. Power
Thank you.
in the world, I mean, in the medicine or plants or?
Yeah, that's a good question. So in Japanese Pure Land, I'm not sure. Maybe Jay can clarify also in the Pure Land tradition as it comes from China and Taiwan. But in the little I know about it in Japanese Pure Land, there is this idea of tariki, which means other power. In other words, there is total reliance on the Buddha of the Pure Land, or however you might imagine other power. And in a way, it's very similar to the way, say, a devout Christian may have reliance on Jesus Christ, right? So it's just totally reliant on the Buddha. Whereas to contrast that in Zen, there's statements like, if you meet the Buddha on the road, kill the Buddha, right? So that's an emphasis on, there's an emphasis there on relying on your own capacity to wake up.
Yeah. Buddhism is much more diverse than I would have ever thought. So many different. I never have thought that there was a relying only on the Buddha, something outside.
Yeah, something outside.
Oh no, I don't know who that. Oh, Jay, yes.
Hello,
Yeah.
hello.
Say hello.
Echoing.
Tell me. Yeah.
Just my 2 cents. But
Yes.
yeah, it's interesting because I just talk and then there's echoing. So where is me? Am I here in front of the computer, or I am there in front of your computer? So Daishin mentioned, I really appreciate that, because Buddhism has we call it 84,000 different methods. So that fits different people, because our problems are limitless problems, boundless problems. So we have boundless methods. But eventually they will reach the same destination, the enlightenment. And the teaching about Tali, Zili, self-power, and is very authentic, very traditional teachings. It's not a later teachings. It's been there for hundreds, thousands of years. So very authentic teachings. And there's a once, because there's a one summary about self-power and other power is the complete self is other, and the complete other is your true self. So eventually there's no difference between self and other. And Zen says every phenomenon or every Dharma is the manifestation of the mind, or Tathagata Gabra. So it's not something external as we think it is. So that's why if you choose total submission to something, that for some people that could be a method for them to find their true Buddha nature. So in that sense, so it seems you got it right. Yeah.
Sort of. What's the complete self is the other, and then you said the other.
The complete. That's translation, but
Oh,
I'll find the original text later. The complete other is self, or your or true self. Sometimes we use true self
true self.
because we misunderstood about self. We think self is, like here, but it's interesting because if we are not related, whatever I say, the message cannot be conveyed. So that means there must be something rippling around to everywhere. Quantum physics.
Ooh. Oh, good. So it's, I don't know. It's hard to use words.
Yeah, this is where words do fall short when we try to make these kind of clear-cut distinctions. When we start using words to say, oh, it's got to be this way, they illuminate our kind of dualistic thinking.
Mhm.
And I kind of think that's related with the Koan. That's why the master mountain, Yaoshan, medicine mountain, didn't say anything, because Navar has already explained that. Wow, it's beyond the words. You could be a good master.
I got so much precepts to learn.
and
Oh.
and there's a similar story, because it's not only depends on the master's power. So we say master gives enlightenment, but then in Buddha time there's also someone who sit on the seat, who was invited by very devoted Buddhist and asked him to give teachings, but then he didn't learn anything about Dharma, so he kind of sitting there and feel a little bit regret and shameful and don't know what to say. So eventually he sneak out of, as people are buying to him, so he just sneak out of the room and leave empty seat there, and people waited for a long time, nobody there. Then they looked up, and there's one woman, because she is so devoted and she has learned a lot, and then she said, wow, that's about emptiness and impermanence. People gone. And then he kind of struck her, and then she got enlightened. That's a story in Buddha. So the power is, you cannot say the power is only hers because of the teacher show something. And you cannot only say that's the teacher's power, because not everybody get enlightened. So that's why other and other power, self-power, actually are one power.
Yeah. Yeah.
That when the Buddha up a flower and one person, boom. Is that the story that you were going to say, Daishin?
No, that's another great example of the mind.
I love that.
Yeah, passing on the mind through silence and holding a flower like that. So this is the question, like, what is it that helps to wake us up to the Dharma, right? The Buddha doesn't have to say something. He can hold up a flower. She could hold up a flower, or you could hear a sound of a bell, or what is it for you that helps to wake you? This doesn't have to be like this super mystical experience, but what is it that helps you to wake up to the fact that you're alive, right? That's the question, is how does In what ways can we wake up to how we're alive?
So I have a general question, or maybe it's a class of questions. When I'm trying to learn something new, I do like to figure things out myself. And I have confidence that other people are like that too. But there's a period where I'm dependent on teachings, let's say a recipe, a bread recipe.
Mm.
And then there's another stage where I've figured out the things to pay attention to. And I'm much more comfortable once I'm at that second stage, where I'm still learning all kinds of things, but I know what to watch. You know, I know how, what the bread should feel like at this stage,
Mm.
or I know the taste that I'm going after, or yeah. It feels to me like even if sitting is the objective, there are sub-objectives and kind of milestones or little measures that are probably helpful if we can label them and look for them. Just kind of signs that we're doing something right.
Mm. Mm. Yeah.
I think it's a Tibetan tradition, but I have, and so correct me if I'm wrong on that, but I don't even remember where I learned about it, but I have been, I have a small teacup. So at night when I go to bed, I turn the teacup upside down for the end of the day. And then the next morning, the very first thing I do before I roll out of bed or look at my emails is I turn the teacup right side up. It's a new day. I'm to live in the present moment. And so it's small stuff. I love the idea of, I actually downloaded the Plum Village app, and it was dinging at me all the time. And I have a hard time with my phone because it's so connected to me. So I've actually thought about getting like a cuckoo clock, or I don't know what you call them, but anyhow, something that would ring on the hour. And so it would not be necessarily associated with my phone, because some days I just want to throw that thing as far as I possibly can. But I do love the idea of something to remind me, especially throughout the day, because that's where I struggle the most. Because it's easy to get caught up in work and the demands and stress. And it's much easier before 8 o'clock and after 5 o'clock for me to practice. So
Yeah.
it's my 2 cents.
Yeah, I love it. The ritual of turning a cup upside down and then right side up. That sounds like a beautiful ritual. And really that's what we're talking about, is like rituals that help us to kind of remember that we're alive. Yeah. So yeah, getting creative with that. There's one thing you can try, and this is there's 52 exercise, I think 53 exercises, so one for each week of the year, in Chozen Baiz's book called How to Raise a Wild Elephant, and exercises in mindfulness. And one of them is to use your non-dominant hand. So if you're right-handed, for the major tasks that you use your right hand with, like eating, practice eating with your left hand. Or for brushing your teeth, practice brushing your teeth with your left hand. And what that does, the newness of it wakes us up to having to learn again, having to be the learner again. So, you know, if you like, I'm using my left hand to brush my teeth, it feels awkward. So you can, you know, think about that throughout the day. Try to remember to use your non-dominant hand for some of these major activities as a way to practice mindfulness very on the kind of slyly.
The Tara Brach, I don't know if this has anything to do with it, but it reminds me of the Buddha holding up a flower. I don't know why, but Tara Brach and her thing talking about loving presence within us, and she says the story about a little kid, a little child in kindergarten, and they're drawing, and the teacher goes up, what are you drawing? And the little boy or little girl says, I'm drawing God. And the teacher says, well, we don't really know what God looks like. And the little girl, little boy looks up, well, you soon will find out. I, this whole thing about this wonder and awe and, knowing, it just sort of still reminds me of the fly. I don't know. Maybe
Yeah.
it just warms my heart because kids are like that, it's just like.
Yeah, the simplicity of that. What a wonderful story.
Yeah. I don't know if that has anything to do, but I kind of go back to the arts, and that helps me with my rituals, my daily ritual. I like to make something, usually cards for other people.
Oh,
So.
beautiful. Yeah. Yeah. And in Japanese culture, there's the arts are a huge part of practice. Zen training. There's calligraphy, there's tea ceremony, there's swordsmanship, kendo, all of these, the ways, judo, shado is calligraphy, the way of the brush. I'm sorry, shodo, the way of the brush. Kendo, the way of the sword. Is flower arrangement, ikebana. So all of those practices, those are mindfulness practices. So if you want to bring mindfulness into your daily life, that's another way to do it, is through the arts. Another thing that Jisho and I just started doing recently is before our breakfast and lunch meals, we have a little image of Avalokiteshvara at our meal table, and get a little offering, a little food offering, and just place it right in front of her, and then kind of putting our hands together and vow 3 times. And it's just been such a delightful way to include our son in the practice, because when we're talking Zen, we're often talking about these really abstract ideas, and they don't make a lot of sense for a 4-year-old kid. But certainly putting some food in front of a statue is a very tangible way of connecting with the Buddha, for somebody like him, as well as for adults too. Yeah. All right. Well, we're about at our time, so I'm gonna let's see. I'll stop the recording here. Let's just make a dedication. May all beings be safe. May all beings be well. May all beings be happy. Thank you so much for your practice this evening. It's such a pleasure to practice with you. I'm looking forward to the time when we can be together in the same space.